Welcome to the Software People Stories. I'm Shiv.
I'm Chitra.
And I'm Gayatri.
We bring you interesting, untold stories of people
Associated with the creation
Or consumption of software-based solutions.
You'll hear stories of what worked,
and sometimes what didn't,
you will also hear very personal experiences.
and insights that would trigger your thoughts.
And inspire you to do even greater things.
Before we jump into today's conversation, a special thanks to PM Power Consulting for encouraging and supporting this show right from the start. With over 1,000 person-years of collective experience, PM Power has helped many organizations, teams, and individuals chart out their own journeys of excellence and make progress. Thank you, PM Power. Now, let's move to today's episode.
I'm very excited to welcome all of you into the March month, where we are showcasing extremely powerful individuals, right from a climate tech expert to a person who's actually beaten all odds in terms of health and the technology world. She's a senior director in software. And I am also super excited to share our male ally to share what he thinks about women who are breaking various constraints and various barriers, and how he looks at the world very, very differently. In this episode, you will hear Sujatha Ramani talk to my co-host Shiv Guru about her journey and how she started in her grassroots in Trichy and moved on to Chennai and working in HP and in big enterprises, and moving into startup and creating her different sets of micro entrepreneurs in her current role as CEO of Pollinate. She covers how she had to fall back on her enterprise connections as and when mentoring and deep connections were needed, as well as what it takes to alleviate poverty and bringing awareness at extremely important stages of creating social change at the mindset as well as at the grassroots. Listen on to this outstanding conversation with Sujatha Ramani.
Hi, Sujatha. Welcome to the Software People Stories.
Thank you so much, Shiv. My privilege. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm very eagerly looking forward to this after our brief conversations that we had earlier. I think there is so much that you have to share, and that will be very inspiring for our listeners. And as I mentioned, this is going to be one of the Women's Month episodes. So I think there will be more women expecting things that would inspire them to probably achieve at least a part of what you have achieved. But before we get into that, maybe we'll start with your origin story, how you got associated with IT also, and then roughly your career trajectory, and we'll take it from there.
Sure. Thank you, Shiv. Like I said, it's a huge honor for having this privilege to talk to you today. I'm born and brought up in Chennai, and then my dad got transferred to Trichy, so I completed my college and then my postgrad in Trichy, and the story starts from there. So when I finished my school, I got into BITS Pilani, one of the A schools in India, and I'm the only daughter amongst 5 boy cousins that I grew up with, one brother of my own. And, as you will was highly cherished in the family. But that cherishing came in the form of a barrier for me to say, no, you can't go that far to, Rajasthan to pursue your college education. So I was crestfallen and I said, now that's something that I'm not taking it lying down. But I couldn't prevail, right? My family said, no, that's not done. So the only privilege that I had was to say, you can go, overnight train journey to any location that you would like to. So, well, then I continued my education in Trichy, and then I moved on to coming to Bangalore to start my career in IT, which is that one overnight journey from Trichy, and that's how I landed here in Bangalore. And yes, of course, my IT journey started from there. I worked with the best of the brands, Microland, Wipro, and HP. HP was my longest stint, around 17 years. And from there on, I uh, almost was not expected to quit from HP, but I did finally with the bug of startup, having bitten me. And I said, I have to do something now in the startup area. And I always had this urge as a kid to do something on my own. And so I said, okay, now, if not now, when else? And in 2013, I quit HP after spending 17 years there. And I tried one startup idea, and then I moved on to try another startup idea. And then in 2017, I moved to the social space, ever grateful being here. So since then, I've been in the social space, trying to, create a change in the world that we live in. And since 2019, I'm here with Pollinate Group, the organization that works with the poorest of the poor women, marginalized women who have access to no education or no opportunities. We work with them to help them build a small micro business and have access to income. So that's in short my career journey up until now.
Wonderful. Uh, yeah, before we go deeper into the social space, what are the kind of roles that you've played, whether it's in the Microland? The Microland used to be more of the networking company, right?
Yes.
Wipro, HP, was it
Yes.
the hardware side, sales side, R&D side?
Yes. So this is another interesting story. I graduated in 91 after my management, and it was kind of the early stage of the IT industry blossoming in India. And my target company at that time was CMC, right? I'm coming from a public sector background of my father in BHEL and so on. So I said, that's my goal company. And I wanted to prepare for an interview with CMC, and before which Microland came to the campus. So I said, let me get one practice interview with them. And as luck would have it, their offer, went off the cutoff mark for me to sit for any future interviews. And hence I couldn't go for my goal organization. And I joined Microland. Fantastic experience being there as a software product executive was my first role there. And this is another interesting piece. I was told that I have the flair to, get on to sales and business development, but I refused. I said, no, I'm not here to go and convince people. I'm better off creating products, understanding products and features and benefits, and creating a tool or a method to explain the product to customers. Well, and then I joined Wipro in the peripherals and international business division. And there I again, moved a little closer to the market. I worked with the channel partners of peripherals and helped grow the channel business for peripherals under RNA in Wipro. And then I moved on to Compaq and HP that got merged together. And that's how my journey in Compaq and HP. In fact, if I add Compaq's tenure along with my HP tenure, it'll be about 18 and a half years in the combined entity. And HP is where I think I, blossomed into who I am right now. I took my first business development and sales role in that organization, and I think I've never had to look back after that. I want to share this experience because the kind of, constraint I put to myself saying I won't do sales turned out to be the best, ability that I had when I joined HP. It just turned out to be one of the most compelling, attributes that I had. And I got chosen within 3 years of being in the organization to getting the President's Award, which is the top 1 percentile of HP employees. And there were about 120,000 employees in HP worldwide at that point in time. And to get chosen to be a top high performing, salesperson was testimony to the fact that I had my own, restraints, and I didn't have that self-belief in me initially, which I broke, and then it kind of, took me to different levels. And those 17 years in HP were truly transformative. I did multiple roles, managing enterprise business, managing channel partners, managing distribution, doing global marketing and communications, then doing global R&D. And when you say R&D, I'm not that nerdy techie person at all, but it was a huge opportunity when globally a technology that was all developed and originated and developed in the US was transitioning to India. And they wanted a marketing and sales and customer champion to also be a part of that tech transition. Because technology alone, when you bring, and if you don't bring the knowledge of the customers that have been, adopters of the technology and continuous supporters of that technology, you're leaving a piece behind. So I joined that team of knowledge transfer as a global customer programs advocate. And that was also a beautiful, transformative experience that I had on very proudly bringing one technology and developing that technology in India for the global market, and continuing to have those customer relationships, understanding the future roadmap of development for that product through those customer engagements and providing that input to the R&D team. So that was a very enriching experience that I was going through in HP, after which, I think the startup bug bit me and I quit HP to run my own organization after that.
Very nice. So one of the things that we always wonder about people who are in the tech side is that they get absorbed in the technology. But when you want, like you mentioned, a customer program advocate, how do you develop an understanding or empathy for the users or the customers?
Fantastic question, Shiv. This is one of the most important things that you learn only by being in front of the customer, right? Which I learned the hard way. First 5 years in my Wipro and Microland days, I was more a back-end person trying to do that. But I think when I spent those years in front of the customer, even today, I feel while you're challenged the most when you sit in front of the customer, you also learn the most when you sit in front of the customer. Not just because what the customer is describing as what they want, but also from the fact the choices that the customer has from competition. And how do you describe your product and solution and services in the context of what the customer wants versus what the competition has, and how do you in a nuanced manner explain this to the customer to say this is the best option for you. I think that is a place where we learn the most, and I cannot be more thankful for having that experience at multiple variants of all of that, having managed customers directly, then having managed channel partners who manage customers, then managing distribution, which also goes back to customers at the end of it all. So I think it gave me and then marketing and global communications was another aspect of bringing in the news that needs to be fed to the customers and so on. Had a lot of layers that it left with me to be able to confidently drive that global program, because that global program needed me to work with EMEA, the Americas, and Asia Pacific as a region to understand all of these types of customers. And it's not just the types, it's also the multicultural ways in which they decide on anything, ways in which they look at solutions. So it was a very, very enriching experience to work with about 100 HP internal ambassadors who were also managing the customers at the other end. And we used to run these ambassador programs that helped me manage this and learn a lot from that experience.
So are these skills trainable skills, or are they based on what your natural style?
Very good question. So Shiv, I think, I'm a firm believer that you just need to be a good material, right? With that material, you can make a shirt, you can make a kurta, you can make a blouse, right? I think that flexibility, one should always be showing. See, I am this person with this attributes. Now, this attribute can be used towards doing something as, item A or item B or item C. I think the aptitude comes with the attitude that you show towards what is in front of you. And somewhere I think in my upbringing, I was given that much of freedom. And I mentioned to you, right, I grew up with four boys and one brother of my own, totally five. I think I've had to always fight for my space. And in doing so, I think I opened out many, aspects of myself to be, made malleable, to be made adaptable for all of this. So I think it's about how you lend yourself to, the situation that is in front of you, and how you want to explore yourself to be fitting into that solution and making the best of that opportunity that comes by your way. I think women demonstrate that in a large way, but I think we also sometimes put constraints to ourselves saying, no, this is not something I should be doing. But I think we have demonstrated in many ways in other aspects. It's high time we brought that to our professional life as well.
Yeah, so that was probably my indirect question that was running in the back of my mind. When you impose certain constraints on yourself, saying that probably either because of gender stereotypes or otherwise saying that is not something I would do or I can do. Is there a role for or your formula for seeking out or getting help from mentors, or being in the right place at the right time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. You brought in the beautiful word called mentors. I think that's very important. Every time I did a role, I took on a new role, I'll take it up. First, year one will be the year of learning. Year two, I will do it very well. Year three, I will excel. And then I say, no, I need to learn something new. But in that year three, I will have this conversation, very open conversation with my current boss. And I will tell him, listen, I want to do this next. And I want to find a mentor, who can prepare me to be going on to this level next. And I've always had highly supportive managers who I continue to have very, very lovely relationships even now, who fueled my, hunger for growth. And I think we should also, identify those mentors and put ourselves to those challenges, right? If you put yourself out to take on those challenges, I think the world and the team and the people around you will always be supportive and help you to get there. And I always loved those challenges, and new learning and wanting to do something new was always, I enjoyed a lot. And I think my organization, and HP being that organization, I always used to say this to all my customers: there's not a single company on this planet that's as good as HP. Starting with a tiny little, storage reel that we used to, storage unit that we used to sell, up to a high performance computing solutions. We had everything, including a consumer group right in the middle of all of that. So the flexibility that it offered for me and my hunger for growth was immense. I just tapped into a very small potential of all of that, right? So I lucked out from being a person working in HP. But at the same time, in our own scope of whatever we do, I think the more we put ourselves out to take on new challenges, the more we learn, the more we grow. And I see that in the small organization that I'm running right now. I have my team members that put up their hands. For someone in finance put up her hand saying, I'd like to do operations, right? Someone from HR said, I'd love to do, learning and development, entire training of my marginalized women and training of internal people. So her job was only recruitment and operations. But those are, very important ways to demonstrate the appetite for growth. And I think it fuels your, growth and in your career, taking you ahead.
And just staying on this mentorship, are there any tips of how to seek mentors, or where do you go look for mentors?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we speak, I still have two coaches that I work with. I get coached. So my learning doesn't stop. And every time I come out of my coaching conversation, I'm always thinking, oh, wow, I've learned something new, and I'm going to try this in my next, interaction with this person, or in my next conversations with people. So continuously, wanting to learn something new is the first attribute for you when you're sitting in front of the mentor. And I think when you seek mentors, always look for mentors that have done what you're aspiring to do, so that there is correlatable learnings. And I don't, again, try and say take it only from your vertical of experience, but even if it is coming from a different industry, if it matches your aspiration within your vertical or your industry, take that, right? And go very well prepared when you're sitting in front of a mentor. Go with a set of questions. And these mentors have gone past the path that you're aspiring to walk. So they're only going to turn around and tell you what they've experienced. And you, as a person that wants to walk that path, are far more aware of what you're going to be encountering as you, progress in your journey. In a very, simple way, it's not like a Google map, which definitely tells you there is a traffic jam here, take another route. It's not as simple as that. But your experience will be distinctly different from what your mentor is explaining to you. But at the same time, it opens you to the blindsidedness that you might have. And with that knowledge and wisdom, you're far more better prepared in your journey of where you want to go. So choosing a mentor is very important, from the point of view of where you want to go, and also preparing for each of those mentoring conversations is equally important. No mentor is going to spoon feed you saying, this is my journey, listen in, right? But they're going to only be responding to what you want to achieve in those conversations. So I think that's where I think the whole mentor-mentee conversations becomes very rich.
Staying on the same topic for a little longer, because one more thing that was, see, in an organization like HP, which is a global organization, which you said just thousands of people, It's probably easy to find role models within the organization or
Yes.
going to mentors and so on. Uh, but we'll delve into the startup bug. But before that, I'm preempting one question. In a startup, you're kind of on your own,
Yes.
right? So how does this picture change?
Well, you're absolutely right, right? Finding role models and managers that you're in awe of is very easy because HP has that ability to find the right talent to fit into their organizations, and everyone is a gem of a person that you're working with.
Mm.
But when you move to the startup world, all of that is disappears. It just disappears, right? So that is when the network that you've built over the 2022 odd years that I had spent in the IT industry before I ran my own startup came into play. I quickly went and took advisors for 2 3 functions that I wanted to drive. And here's an interesting story on gender again. So one of my colleagues from HP was my co-founder. She was a finance come compliance lady, and I'm as HP's business practices, we are all compliance first and then business next, right? So
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
our pedigree, and that's how we are all born and brought up in HP. So she was that ops and finance specialist. So we together wanted to start this. And for the tech development piece, I wanted a solid developer. And when we were going around asking for funding, I was told, no, you need to get a techie who should be a guy because there are already 2 women in the team.
Oh,
It didn't ring well with me at all. So I consciously chose this woman, right? There are many finance and compliance folks there. So I consciously chose this woman, and I'm going to consciously choose another tech lady to be my tech co-founder. But I found that the business challenge that we were trying to solve, it was assumed that it was tough for women to handle, and it was important for a male to be a part of my equation. But I kind of stuck to my values and said, went to the next investor meeting, introducing you to my lady co-founder, who's my tech co-founder. Again, didn't sit well with the investors, but I kind of didn't want to let go of my values, and
mm,
I had to dispense with my startup idea. Probably in a sense also because I stuck to my values. But yes, I think it's important when you move to the startup world to have the right kind of people advising you, and that rich advice I got from the network that I built in HP and the customers in fact, even today, I have 2 of those customers continuing to wish me on my birthday. There are many people in my family which forget my birthday, but these people always wish me on my birthday. So I cherish that a lot. And these are people that have always been a part of your growth and will continue to support you and be by your side, whatever you do. And I think that kind of people centricity is what also is another important element for success in life, that you cherish people, ensure that you are always putting people first in whatever you do.
wonderful. So from this, okay, if I may call it the comfort zone of being in a large organization, having the opportunity to take on different responsibilities and enjoying what you were doing, that came out, pretty much the way you described it. What was the attraction of a startup?
Truth be told, Shiv, I think I said it before I die, I will put one idli kadai. That was my,
Okay.
line. At least, and my
Something.
husband used at least,
Yeah.
something on your own is at least one idli shop. So, and then my husband was very supportive. He said, at least you'll eat the idlis, it won't go waste, right? So at least it was good. But yeah, that was the whole idea. I mean, in the 90s and in the early 2000s, startup was not a great fancy in India, right? It was a global phenomena. You were seeing all of these things happening across the world.
Mm.
And India, in the mid, 2010 to 2020, I think is where the whole startup was, really blossoming and growing very well from 2010 onwards up until now. And to layer it to saying, oh, these are girls who are coming and running this startup was not an easy, garden to walk into. But what is life without those challenges, without breaking those gender norms, without challenging those things, right? So we said, and my family is super supportive. I think that's another important thing I want to, express here. Always choose your partner very, very consciously, right? The partner who will support what you want to do and does not have and their own agenda to say, hey, I'm going to do this and you will do this,
Mm.
right? So fortunately, I really lucked out in choosing a partner that was fully supportive of what I wanted to do with my life. And while it is not a right statement to say that I have the freedom, because all of us should have that freedom, I had all the freedom and independence to do what I wanted to do with my life and my career. So that's an important tip I want to leave for the women out there. Make that choice very, very consciously, because it shouldn't become another barrier for you. Even if you have the energy and the appetite, that shouldn't be another unasked for barrier that should come by your way. So here we were, he also quit and he ran his own idea. I also quit and I ran my own idea. And so I think it's important that when you have an idea, do not let go of that. Give it some life, give it some energy, give it all that it takes, but also be prudent beyond a point. If you're draining your bank account and if you're not getting the right, support from the marketplace, be conscious of it. You should not try, you should not get drowned in that whole idea. Be aware of what is right for you and wait for that for another day, right? Another chance will come by your life, and have that optimism in life to say, okay, this didn't work, and have that ability to let go. And that's an important thing as well. It was my pet idea. I mean, the idea was very simple, and today it is still not an idea that has come to life. I wanted to aggregate paying guest accommodation providers into a digital platform. Right? It was all these PG buildings that were all around us, and I wanted to bring that into a digital platform for parents to see the kind of properties that are there and not come here and go in and out of buildings, 8, 9 buildings in a day, and then decide on which PG building their first time employee child is going to come, right? These are all accommodation meant for first time job seekers. That was what we were trying to do. And as we speak, it is still not a digitized place, right? So probably the idea was still too early for its time, and I still don't see that happening yet. So it's important to let go and then say, okay, another day, another time. And always, the earth will conspire to make it happen for you. So I think that's an important thing that one should realize.
Yeah. So that brings me to, how do you choose what space to work in? As a startup, yes, there is one thing about, the idli kadai or whatever. But then on what basis do you, pick?
Yeah.
Particularly when you set up Pollinate and you're in the social space.
Yes.
It's a very different space, right?
Yes. But I'd like to bring that continuity, right? So here, I did this because I came as a person who came into Bangalore with my first job. And I told my family that I will go figure, right? So nobody accompanied on my first trip to Bangalore. My classmate's dad picked me up from the station and he took me home, and auntie and uncle gave me my breakfast, and we started walking around Malleshwaram to look for a PG, right? And 15 years later, another cousin of ours who's coming from Bombay, when she came to look for a place in Bangalore in 2010 or 2011, it was exactly the same thing that she did. So I said, how is it that something like this has not changed? And in Bangalore is a tech capital, and people have still not figured out a way to solve this problem. And her parents were not able to figure out where their daughter is going to stay. And that was a need I felt that we should be able to, solve for ourselves. So that was the origin of that startup idea that I had. And at the same time, it's not just for women or men, right? The situation is the same for men and women. But parents don't worry much about where their son stays, but parents worry a lot about where their daughter stays. Right? They want to make sure it is safe. They want to make sure it's close to workplace. They want to make sure it's close to shops, pharmacies in case she's unwell, and so on and so forth. So now fast track and, come to the work that I'm doing right now. It's all about, women not having those opportunities, right? So I think somewhere I'm drawing that parallel of how women are not supported enough by a generic engine that is required to support and do certain things, needs change, needs correction, right? So that said, the work that I do is not just about women, right? So the work that I do right now in Pollinate has got gender, has got clean energy, and has got poverty alleviation associated along with it. So the whole point is, when you put 2, 3 elements to it and you see it work, it becomes completely magical, right? So that's where the element of a woman who's got no access to income, if she sells clean energy products to communities that live off the grid, no electricity, no power, and they have solar light now, and by doing so, if she's earning margins and she's earning income is a compelling, reality. And it feeds into my entrepreneurship that I always wanted to do. Now I'm creating micro entrepreneurs to the women that we work with. So somewhere I'm seeing the dots all connecting and aligning, Shiv.
Yeah. So when in this space of reaching out to women who need support is probably as disorganized or probably even more than in your PG space. So how do you find the deserving women or women who have the potential and support them?
Yes. So yes, this is actually quite tough. The whole origin story of Pollinate is also the original idea was to solve the energy poverty in these communities, right? These are communities that just drown into darkness after sunset, right around us in metro cities and in rural areas. While India is very, very tightly electrified, come sunset, the electrification that's required for irrigation is not as continuous after sunset. And in the urban areas, these are people that move from rural to urban in search of livelihoods and feed the labor requirements of the fast growing cities in India. Every minute as we speak, 27 people move from rural to urban in search of livelihoods. That is huge because these people are small farm holders or not even landowners and have no access to anything as income to manage food for themselves, that they come and live in unspeakable conditions in blue tents around us. So originally, again, tech comes into play. We understand these communities through Google Maps, and we were able to go there and serve them with solar lights and solar fans and solar torches. Over a period of time, we've started working with other NGO partners that are working on women's initiatives, children's initiatives in the rural areas. If they're working on agri, on farmers, there is always a woman behind them. If you're working with children, there is the mother. If you're working with farmers, there are female farmers, there are wives of farmers. Thus, we've been able to identify potential women from a pool of women that they bring to an orientation program. We run a small psychometry to understand, is this woman able to speak? Is this woman have the hunger to make something else out of her life? A beautiful segue into the mentor conversation we had a few minutes ago. These women have no mentors. Her mother didn't do anything different. Her sister didn't do anything different. Her aunts are not doing anything different. So her self-belief is almost zero. So we have to really ask her, what is it that you want to do different in life? And they all turn around and say, I at least want my child to have a better life than me. I want them to have access to education. I want them to have better quality of life and live better than me. If that is a goal that she's defined for herself, our job begins then. We give her the entrepreneurship training. Entrepreneurship training is not some, business canvas training that you need to read 10 books. It starts with simple cash management, understanding how to talk to customers, describing a product and features and benefits, and then managing inventory and managing outstandings. Very simple, which any street vendor is capable of. We tell these women. And at this point, I want to also, underline the fact that the women that we work with are a level or two below the street vendors, level or two below the cook or the maid that comes into our homes. And why? Because all of these people have a pakka house and they have access to water. They can bathe, they can come and cook and clean for us. These women have access to water once a week. So they do not have, and the women and the children and the girl children can't bathe during daytime, and they find 3 a.m., 4 a.m. timelines to bathe in the dark so that nobody sees them. One of the most important, heartbreaking stories that I heard from one of our empowered women is she's made enough income through our program that she moved to a pakka house, and she said, my daughter can now bathe whenever she wants. That really shook me. I said, this work, if I'm doing it with thousands of women, I have to take it to many, many, many thousands of women in the future. Because as basic as having a bath is not in their hands. It's not in their right to have a bath when they want to. So that's the kind of women that we work with.
Just before we started the recording, you also kind of indicated something about generationally how things are changing.
Yes.
That
Yeah. So I think, while I describe my own story of how I was not allowed to go to BITS Pilani, my grandmother was married at the age of 9, right? And you know how just after puberty, they are all married off. And my mother was married when she was 20. right? So I think, but she studied and she was working, contrasting against my grandmother, who was not allowed to even pursue studies after she attained puberty. She was married off. But my mom got educated. She was working in an organization and she still had to quit when she had us, me and my brother. That was a social, oh, you have two kids, your priority are your kids. Then, my own barrier of not having gone, far away into the northern part of the country. But today, my daughter is living in a different country, is building a life of her own, is working on the top edge of technology in fintech. And I see these four generations progress, right? Comes not just by chance, it comes with clear intent of how we put ourselves and how we define and take space for ourselves, and how the immediate family and immediate society around us is shaping it for us. So while I speak today to all women, I think we should also not shy away from the fact that we've come a very long way from where we were decades ago. And I truly wish these transformations happen much, much faster in the coming decades. And I think the shoots of all that is already there. Um, but that said, it is each one's responsibility to take ownership of that. And I'm not now talking just to the women. I think it's a whole lot of responsibilities also fall on the men. Like I just mentioned about my own partner story, we have to ensure that men are part of this conversation and have to become enablers in facilitating this. We have a lot of forums, and 90% of the mentors that I had were all men. I consciously went and chose a female mentor early in my career. But even at that point in time, we did not have men who were mentors for us, women who were mentors for us. So I'm seeing that change today. We have a lot of women mentors who are now shaping the lives of many more women. But at the same time, just because we have more women, I think the conversation shouldn't stop amongst women. I think we should bring in more men into the conversation and ensure that the next generations have less and less and less reason to speak about gender equality, and it's already established.
Very well said. Okay, the next one is probably a little more philosophical. You can choose to answer or not, which is as, say, the next generations get more empowerment or have more opportunities and so on, there is also this discussion on the aging population and then how it has become more nuclear families and the support. And particularly, I'm asking this in the context of women who throughout their lives have been supporting both what we generally call the work life or whatever, have responsibilities in multiple spheres. So where do
Yes,
you see some approach to address
yes,
this? Yeah.
yes. So this is where I see this, I mean, there is a reason why goddesses have more hands than gods, right? If you've seen, right? Why do goddesses have more hands? Except you have one villain god who's got more heads and hands. All the male gods have only a pair of hands. But if you see the female goddesses as part of our mythology or culture, it's by definition, we are designed to do more, right? We are designed to take on more than what we can, chew. That should not stop with your fundamental responsibility of just being a caregiver.
Mm.
And women can do it because they have those extra hands, they have that extra strength, they have that ability. Use it. In fact, I was told this, by a very dear friend of mine when I was working in Wipro. During festivals, she'll probably, take an hour off and go early. And she'll say, why? No, no, I have to make these sweetmeats for this particular festival. And she said, I've chosen to take this occupation because I want to work, but at the same time, I won't shirk my responsibility of having to do that. And she said her husband will be back home and together they would do it. That resonated so well with me. You take on these responsibilities and you're able to shine. I challenge any man to do the same. And I think by DNA, we are all designed to do all that we are required to do. And we are designed to be the caregiver. We are designed to be the family, the center of the family. And we are designed also to be successful outside of family and the other basic responsibilities that we have. So I think women should take pride in it. Women should add more fuel to that energy that we have. And try and that brings us to another important point where why are we even called the weaker gender? we are certainly not the weaker gender when we
Absolutely
deliver
not.
more
Yeah.
and we give more output and more results, right? So I think where is this definition for weak coming from? So I think there is so much that needs to be spoken of in that direction. And I have not yet heard of anyone that has shirked their family responsibilities to be successful professionally, right? I think uh, um, that ability to thrive doing both is demonstrated by women adequately and immensely.
There is a couple of questions which are my favorite questions with every guest, which is more like career tips for two segments of people.
Yeah.
Those who are considering a career in IT now, right? With all this confusion and all these predictions that you keep hearing. And the second, normally I ask for people who may be facing what may be called as a mid-career challenge or mid-career confusion. But in the case of women, probably there are some more aspects, particularly the career re-entry when they take a break and come back and so on.
Yeah.
So you have any thoughts for them?
Yeah. So I think here again, women with their ability to adapt, by design, we are the ones who walk into another family after getting married, right? Why? Why don't the men come into another family? Because the reason is we are more adaptable. By design, we are more adaptable. Lean into that strength. Dig deep into that strength. If you see AI coming and, disrupting you, I think women are far more better positioned to re-equip themselves by design, right? And by their ability to multitask, ability to learn things new, ability to reconfigure themselves for the new realities, I think women are better positioned. So lean into that strength that you inherently have, right? And this thing about career break, I mean, it's become a kind of a thing that is stuck on women, right? Because they are the mothers. They are creating a human, and they need that time and energy to give for that new human, whereas man is not required to do that. So I think it should be looked at very differently to say she did something in that 2 years which a man cannot do. And I think we need to write that story, write that narrative strongly. Even if a man took that 2 years break, what could he have done in that 2 years, right? Whereas you've gone and created a human, you've nurtured that human, you've kind of let that human to be taken care of by someone and you're returning. So let's take pride in that 2 year break that only a woman can take. And even if a man desires, cannot do that, right? So, and men should understand this and not stick it on a woman's face saying you took a 2 year break. Go take that break and tell me what you can do is what that woman should tell them, right? So let's not make this as a thing that is happening, but it is required to keep the world alive. If women didn't do that, this world is not progressing. So let's look at it as a nurturing phase for that woman and then, talk of it as something that has happened in her life and cherish it. In our organization, we celebrate a woman who comes back from her mat leave. I think it's a great way to welcome her to say, hey, here is a place for you to come and thrive again. And we give you all the time and space to balance this both.
Okay, so I have a bonus question.
Yes, go on.
No, which is with so many hands, all this ambidexterity, and then juggling so many things, and so on. Are there any personal practices that you have to stay grounded that you would like to share?
Yes. Very nice question, Shiv. I think, early on in my life, my energy and enthusiasm was also tempered with a lot of, what do I say, um, energy that I was not utilizing right? Let me put it that way. But I think after learning certain, practices of meditation, I was able to channelize my energy in a much, much, much better fashion. And today, I think my morning discipline and my morning routine is something that's taking me by. And I think I have to credit my mother-in-law for this. She gave me one tip. She said, whatever happens, you prioritize your health. So that was her, fantastic tip to me. A kind of a naughty me will say, oh my God, only if I'm healthy, I can take care of her son.
Yes.
But no, that's just being naughty, right? I am fundamentally taking care of myself. And that is very, very important. Even if you're doing, half the things that you're doing right now, prioritizing oneself and one's health is non-negotiable. Because once that fabric is done, if that fabric is neat and clean, you can make anything with that fabric, like I always started this conversation with. If that fabric is crushed and old and weak and feeble, there's nothing that one can do with that fabric. So please prioritize your health, do your exercises, do your morning routines, do what it takes to be mindful, take those 20-minute meditative breaks. It only energizes you to do what you want to do. And you're a much higher functioning person when you put that 1 hour for yourself in a day. And my biggest tip for anyone that wants to manage their life and their health is to give that 1 hour to yourself. 20 minutes of meditation and 40 minutes of exercise is non-negotiable.
On that wonderful note, I think we are almost out of time. This probably can continue much longer. Thanks a lot, Sujatha, for sharing your story from your experience and how you've been able to manage all these different situations, as well as creating an impact for all these underserved women. That's really touching.
Thank you, Shiv. In fact, I derive a lot of inspiration from the women that I work with, right? If I go to their, blue tent homes, the warmth with which they welcome, and when I say, "How are you?" they say, "I'm very fine." But that contentment I see in their face, sometimes I say, no, she shouldn't be so content. She should aspire for more. But that contentment that she shows in her face, I think, all of us have so much to learn from the kind of work that we do. And these women fuel me every single day. With nothing, the kind of, positivity they show, the kind of energy they bring to the table to do what they have to do, I think it's immense. I want to, conclude this conversation with one inspiring story of one of the women that we work with. I'll take a minute more with your
Sure.
permission, Shiv. So there was this lady who's been working with us for about 3-4 years. And we graduate these women in about 2 to 3 years. And so we called her as an independent woman entrepreneur. And I invited her to share her story with my entire team. And she says, "I am not here because I'm earning more money than other women in the group. I am here because today I have my 2 daughters who are educated and are continuing their studies." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, um, "I am 32 and my daughter is in college." My heart sank, which means she's gotten married in her early teens and delivered in her early teens. My heart sank. The story doesn't stop there. She says when she finished her school, she wanted to become a nurse. My mother-in-law came and gave me this X amount of money and said, "Here it is the money for you, but not for her education, for you to marry her off now." She said, "No. Can I use this for her college fees?" The mother-in-law grabbed that money back. She went to her husband. Husband said, "You will follow my mother's thing. You will not do what it takes." She said, "No, I will make sure that my daughter realizes her dream because I didn't have that option." She goes and finds out how to become a nurse, and they figure out that you have to write an entrance exam. And the mother-in-law and the husband create chaos in the house of feigning illness, and they made sure the child did not go to write that exam that day. This woman, my Suryamukhi, as we call her, my woman entrepreneur, does not give up even then. She goes to a nearby hospital, which has a nursing college, and says, "I want an admission for my daughter. This is her 12 standard marks, and she needs to become a nurse." They said, "No, it doesn't work that way." She said, "I'll give you my kidney. You're a hospital." It doesn't work that way at all. Please don't even talk that. Then someone saw this happening in the webcam, and the management inside came out and said, "I see your intent. I'll give you a discount. This is your discounted fee. Please, I'm happy to enroll you as your daughter as a nurse." She sums up the story by saying, "It's not the money, ma'am, because the money, the hospital, reduced the fees. And there was someone sitting in the reception who funded that thing. But the courage that I had to stand my ground is what Pollinate taught me. Nothing else is, everything else somebody else could have done. But this is something that I gained as my internal courage." So this story, speaks volumes of what women have been deprived of and how much of work is required to be done at the most marginalized level. And I think, I want to sum up this whole conversation to say, Let's create more women who are able to just speak for themselves and stand their ground.
Absolutely. Wish you all the best in your dreams.
Thank you, Shiv. Thank you
And I
so
like
much.
that.
Thanks for the
Yeah,
opportunity.
I like that you said dream, but be pragmatic.
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
We thank Siddharth for the music and Anita for promoting the Software People stories.
If you like this episode,
Please subscribe on your favorite podcast client.
And spread the word in your network.
if you'd like to share your story,
Contact us at podcasts@pm-powerconsulting.com.